The most feared Ku Klux Klan biker in the world isn't just a story. He is very real and scary. A person who combines the violent, lawless world of outlaw bikers with the dark, racist history of the Ku Klux Klan. His name alone strikes fear into both friends and enemies because of his reputation for violence, loyalty, and hatred. His power comes from more than just violence. He can get people to follow him, scare them, and control the worlds of both bikers and the Klan. What makes him so scary? The dark origins of the most feared Klan biker.
Klansmen for Mississippi!
Mississippi!
Klansmen for America!
For America!
The story of the most feared Ku Klux Klan biker starts in a world where hate and violence are the most powerful things. This man didn't join a club like most bikers do because he wanted to be free or rebel. Instead, he was drawn to a club because of a long history of hate and white supremacy. The biker culture, which is known for being lawless, was the perfect place for someone with those kinds of plans to grow up. It gave him a way to show that he was in charge and a place to share his darker ideas. His story is scary because it mixes the violent world of outlaw motorcycle clubs with the deeply held, hateful beliefs of the Ku Klux Klan. The man who would become one of the most feared Klan bikers was born into a world where division ran deep. He was shaped by the violent culture of the American South. There was nothing unusual about his early life. But the racism, violence, and constant fight for power in his environment made him into something much more dangerous. He didn't join the biker world because he loved motorcycles or wanted to be part of a brotherhood. Instead, it was a way for him to take charge and show his strength in a society he thought was weak and divided. But more importantly, it was a way to mix the Klan's ideas with the biker culture's violent ways. He knew from the start that he wasn't just looking for freedom or friends in the biker world. He was looking for something much worse. He didn't join a gang to break the law. He joined to start a personal rebellion against everything he hated, like diversity, unity, and tolerance. And with the Klan's help, he found the best way to use his power. Motorcycle clubs like the Hells Angels and others have long been seen as symbols of rebellion, but he turned that symbolism into something much worse. He wasn't just looking for chaos. He wanted to be in charge in a certain way, based on racial purity and the death of anyone who didn't agree with him. In the world of bikers, you earn respect by being tough and having a good name. But this man got respect not only from the club, but also from the Ku Klux Klan by being violent and having a scary reputation. Being a member of both groups gave him more power and let him spread a message of hate, violence, and fear. He wasn't just a member of the Klan or an outlaw biker, he was a dangerous mix of both, something the world had never seen before. His motorcycle club wasn't just a place to be violent, it was a way for him to get organized, spread his ideas, and gain power in a way that the Klan couldn't. The Klan's beliefs, which came from a long history of racial hatred, fit perfectly with the motorcycle culture's love of violence and rebellion. His power grew as his reputation grew. People were afraid of him not only because he was violent, but also because he could use both the biker world and the Klan to his advantage. Most bikers would be happy to be the best in one area, but he was able to manipulate both. He found support for his racist beliefs in the Klan, and in the biker world, he found the lawlessness he needed to do what he wanted without restrictions. He became a person who could scare people in both worlds. He was unstoppable because he could combine the two and use the strength of each to make the other stronger. He didn't just work in the shadows of these two strong subcultures, he thrived in the space between them, where violence, hate, and rebellion could all live together. As he gained more power, he left behind a path of violence, fear, and threats. People were afraid of him not just because of how he acted, but also because he stood for a perfect storm of racism, violence, and defiance against the law. A legacy of fear, building a terrorizing reputation. In addition to having a poor reputation as a result of his actions, the most feared biker in the Ku Klux Klan was also a member of the Klan. Through the use of premeditated violence and unadulterated fear, it was created. When it comes to the world of motorcycles, the way to win and maintain respect is through controlling, dominating, and using violence. This individual carried it to a level that very few people could comprehend, combining the imagery of violence that are associated with biker culture with the terrifying concepts that are associated with the Ku Klux Klan. People feared him not just due to the fact that he was a powerful individual, but also due to the fact that his name was quite intimidating. Due to the fact that he was a member of both a biker gang and the Ku Klux Klan, he emerged as a living emblem of violence, hatred, and power. His connections to the Ku Klux Klan made him more powerful and bestowed upon him an even more terrifying reputation as he advanced through the ranks of his motorcycle club. He was not only a well-known motorcyclist, but he also became a feared enforcer of the ideals of the Ku Klux Klan organization. Through the actions of an outlaw biker, the goals of the Ku Klux Klan, which included racial hatred, supremacy, and terror, were now being carried out. Because of his dual identity, he became a prominent figure not just within the prison system, but also outside of it, among the general public. Within the realm of bikers, he soon established a reputation for being someone who was not only another member seeking popularity or admiration. On the contrary, he was the kind of man who, because of his acts and presence alone, caused people to be terrified. Not only was he courageous, but he was also vicious, frequently resorting to violence and deception in order to persuade people to do what he wanted. He played parts that kept him at the top of the food chain, because he would punish those who disobeyed him in a prompt and unmerciful manner. Those who did so had the ability to regret their actions. In addition to his physical aggression, people feared him for other reasons as well. The shadow that he cast was another aspect of the story. Despite the fact that he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan, he was not only a deadly biker, but he was also a force for a philosophy that many people believed was out of date. This was until he pushed it back into the mainstream with terrifying repercussions. In addition to the clubhouses, his influence extended into the lives of a great number of individuals who had long been afraid of the violence that the Ku Klux Klan could commit. Simply hearing his name intimidated those individuals who were opposed to the cause of white supremacy. It would be an understatement to call him a thug in a leather jacket, because he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan and a biker. Because of this, he experienced a sense of power and a sense of having a purpose that stemmed from hatred. His goal was not only to terrify people, rather, he desired to assert his authority over them and create a world in which his views might flourish. Through the use of his position inside the biker community, he was able to advance his agenda of violence and racism. That they were up against more than just a motorcyclist was something that everybody who attempted to get in his way quickly realized. He exemplified the quality of fear in its purest form. The manner in which he carried himself was practically a myth. Stories of his violent encounters were shared and retold by members of the biker community, with each subsequent recounting creating a more dramatic account of the events. Everyone who knew what he stood for revered and dreaded him. He was not merely a shadowy figure, rather, he was the incarnation of fear. Unstoppable force, rising through the ranks. He was the most feared motorcycle rider in the Ku Klux Klan, but he didn't get there by staying out of the way. He knew as soon as he got there that he needed to move up in the organization in order to become a well-known figure in the world of outlaw bikers, but his rise to fame was different from that of most bikers. Most of the people who joined the club did so because they wanted to rebel, feel free, or meet new people, among other things. But his reasons were much darker. He wanted power, influence, and the chance to spread hate. He was able to move up in both the Ku Klux Klan and the motorcycle club by using violence, lies, and smart positioning. He didn't want to just be a member, he wanted to be in charge, and he did this in a careful and effective way. People quickly admired him because he was willing to do the Ku Klux Klan's dirty work for those in power, and because he was violent. He wasn't scared of getting into trouble. He actually liked it. Because he was so mean, he often left his enemies behind, which made his reputation grow with each fight. He was able to reach his goals by using psychological tricks and being able to control both Ku Klux Klan members and other bikers. He didn't just use his physical strength to show that he was in charge. It wasn't just about getting back at people who had done you wrong. It was also about meeting new people at the same time. There is a lot of political maneuvering among bikers, and the Ku Klux Klan's power structure was very complicated. He knew that in order to be successful, the most feared Klan biker had to be able to move between both worlds. He was able to stay at the top of the organization by making friends with important people in both the Ku Klux Klan and the motorcycle club. He did a series of planned moves that helped him gain power and hurt his rivals. His power grew quickly as he showed that he was more than just a violent person. He was not only a leader, but he could also organize and manage the resources of the Ku Klux Klan and his motorcycle club to get the most out of them. Not only was he afraid, but he also planned ahead, which helped him get to the top. It didn't take long for his enemies to figure out that being around him was more than just a threat to their lives. He was setting up power structures, and this was a direct threat to those structures. He was able to make a scary synergy that gave him even more power because he could work in both areas. People often think that the motorcycle world is disorganized and chaotic, but when he was in charge, it ran like a well-oiled machine. He wasn't just a figurehead, he was also a great planner. He was able to impose his will and bring order to the chaotic situation with the club. On the other hand, his ties to the Ku Klux Klan gave him a group of people who shared his beliefs and were willing to help him, no matter how far he took his methods. He was trying to get power for himself and spread an idea that would scare both Ku Klux Klan members and fans of motorcycles. As he gained more power, he not only started using it to make sure that others agreed with him, but he also started using it to find people who shared his vision. A major character was the Klan biker, who scared the most people. They were a leader whose power and influence grew over time. Building the reign, loyalty and fear. In his inner circle, loyalty is the most important thing to outlaw bikers. The most feared Ku Klux Klan biker didn't just give loyalty, he had to earn it. And he did that by making people afraid. He didn't use the usual brotherhood ties that most motorcycle clubs have to get to the top. Instead, he built his inner circle by using a deadly mix of fear, manipulation, and violent loyalty. His plan was simple. He used fear to keep his closest friends in line so he could keep his power. People in his circle got special treatment, safety, and a sense of belonging, but it came at a price. They had to be willing to do whatever he wanted, no matter how violent or extreme. If anyone in his inner circle showed signs of disloyalty or failed to follow orders, they were quickly thrown out, often in the most horrible ways possible. The man in charge wanted everyone to do what he said, and those around him had no choice but to do what he said or face serious consequences. This close group was carefully chosen. He didn't just hang out with the most violent or scary bikers. He picked ones who could be easily scared and controlled. A series of tests, including violent tasks, were used to build loyalty. These tasks showed how committed someone was to the cause. Every act of loyalty, whether it was committing crimes fueled by hate or attacking enemies he thought were enemies, made him more powerful. Those who were most loyal were given status, power, and protection, while those who hesitated or showed weakness were killed. But to him, loyalty was more than just following orders. It was about making a bond that couldn't be broken. He made the people closest to him feel like they were part of something bigger than themselves, something that was both strong and scary. He used psychological manipulation to make his closest friends his most powerful weapons. They didn't just do what they were told, they believed in the cause. They agreed with what he saw. His closest friends became a well-oiled machine that would do anything to protect him and the legacy he was building. His methods were harsh, but they worked. His followers were loyal to him, not just because they were scared of him, but also because he had power over them and used their most basic instincts to do so. Not only did they trust him to keep them safe, but they also wanted to be powerful and respected in the biker and clan worlds. His close friends were very close, and each one was either very loyal or very scared. There was no room for weakness in his world, and anyone who didn't meet his standards got the worst punishment. The violence behind the reputation, a cycle of brutality. Most dreaded Ku Klux Klan bikers' reputation didn't just come from being a member of the Klan or the biker community, it was also because he was always violent. In the world of outlaw bikers, violence is often a way to get respect, but for him, it was more than that. It was the basis of his power. His violence was planned and thought out. It was meant to scare people and make sure he was in charge of both the Klan and the motorcycle club. Every violent act had a reason: to make him more powerful, to send a message, and to make him famous. He used violence as a way to keep people loyal, scared, and under his control. He didn't run away from fights, he looked for them. The most feared Klan biker didn't care about winning a fight. He just wanted to show his enemies what would happen if they messed with him. People thought he was a ruthless enforcer because he did these violent things with cold precision. Each act, whether it was a public beating, an ambush, or a targeted attack, was meant to show how powerful he was. The message was clear: if you crossed him, you would pay a heavy price. But what made him really dangerous wasn't just that he could start violence, it was that he could control it. He used violence to divide, control, and scare not only his enemies, but also his own people. He kept his close friends by being loyal, which often meant being very aggressive. His followers had to do violent things for him to stay in his good graces. This made a cycle where violence leads to loyalty, and loyalty leads to more violence. To the biker who scared the most people, violence wasn't just a way to get what he wanted, it was how he showed his power. People were scared just by seeing him, and those who had seen what he had done in the past knew better than to cross him. But violence wasn't just physical, it was also mental. Everyone around him was afraid of violence, which kept them in a state of submission all the time. His ability to scare people into doing what he wanted meant that no one would question his authority. His violence was even more scary because you never knew when it would happen. You didn't know when or where he would attack next, but you knew it would be bad. His power grew as his reputation for violence spread. He was more feared the more violent he got. Fear is power in the biker and Klan world. The violent things he did made him famous, and that fame would follow him for the rest of his life. People in the biker community and the Klan were terrified just by hearing his name. His violence wasn't just about getting power, it was also about making sure that no one else could ever take it away from him. Master of manipulation, controlling both worlds. The motorcyclist, who was the most feared member of the Ku Klux Klan, was not only a violent individual, but he was also very skilled at convincing others to adhere to his desires. The outlaw biker world and the Ku Klux Klan were both under his control, with no one else being able to do so. In contrast to the majority of motorcyclists, who relied on strength and loyalty to maintain their dominance, he was able to maintain his power through the use of influence and control. He did not merely resort to the use of force in order to obtain what he desired from the Ku Klux Klan and his motorbike club, he also utilized manipulation. It was via taking advantage of every vulnerability, from emotional ones to rivalries, that he was able to maintain his dominance in both spheres. Through the creation of strategic relationships and the use of fear, he was able to exert control over the power structures of the Ku Klux Klan. In addition to being a foot soldier who carried out acts of violence, he was also a vital participant who had the ability to maneuver around the political terrain of the Ku Klux Klan movement. By forming alliances with influential leaders or by advancing his own agenda, by utilizing his reputation and the dread he instilled, he was able to advance his position in the ranks. His rise through the ranks of the Ku Klux Klan was not a linear progression. Rather, it was a trip that he meticulously mapped out, during which he made the most of every interaction and opportunity to further his advancement and strengthen his position. The politics of the gang were used by him to advance his position inside the motorcycle club, and he used his violent behavior to intimidate other members of the club. Through the execution of acts of terror at the appropriate moment, he not only garnered respect, but he also earned it. He was able to analyze circumstances and exert power over individuals, which made him a terrifying adversary to both his friends and his adversaries. Keeping fear and respect in balance was something he was able to do. He went to great lengths to ensure that his authority was never called into doubt, by demonstrating his strength when it was required of him and his reserve when it was required of him. In the process of manipulating others, he was able to play both sides, which was one of the most terrifying aspects of his behavior. In spite of the fact that bikers adhered to a strict code of devotion, the racist beliefs held by the Klan frequently made it difficult for him to get along with other members. Despite this, he was able to make use of both sides to his greatest advantage. He utilized the resources provided by the Klan in order to advance his position in the biker community, and he utilized his reputation as a biker in order to advance his position inside the Klan. The ability to navigate between the two worlds bestowed upon him a level of power that was unattainable by most people. His physical might was a source of fear for many people, but it was his capacity to exert mental control over others that made him the most dangerous of all dangerous individuals. Both his adversaries and his allies could be persuaded that they were on his side. and he could convince his friends that they had no other option but to remain faithful. In order to create an environment in which his authority could not be avoided, he utilized his understanding of fear, trust, and loyalty. Individuals who disobeyed him, even in the most insignificant of ways, were either left alone, beaten, or obliterated from historical records. At that precise moment, he was not only interested in being in command. By doing so, he was creating the foundation for his power to sustain itself over time. Even when other people attempted to attack him, they would become so entangled in the webs that he had spun that they would be unable to escape as a result of his meticulous planning of every action. In addition to the fact that everyone dreaded him, they were also aware that he would eventually come after them. If you were to compete against him, you would have little chance of winning. The infamous symbol, using the Klan's legacy for power. The Ku Klux Klan rider, who struck fear into the hearts of the most people, did not merely adhere to the ideas of the Klan, rather, he made them his own brand. This motorcyclist was aware of the weight that the Klan's past carried in a society that is obsessed with power symbols. Due to the fact that the Ku Klux Klan had a lengthy history of committing acts of terror and racial brutality, it was both a burden and a weapon. The majority of people interpreted it as an expression of hatred. Nevertheless, for him, it was a method to demonstrate how powerful he was in the world of bikers and beyond. He was more than simply a biker because of every patch, gesture, and connection he had to the Ku Klux Klan. As a result, he became a representation of both power and dread. He not only utilized symbols to intimidate his adversaries, but he also used it to assert his right to inherit a lineage of authority. Because he was so close to the Ku Klux Klan, he became a living icon of the organization's evil past. Anyone who had the audacity to challenge him was frightened by him because of that link. People were afraid of him not only because of his reputation for being violent, but also because of the air of infamousness that's surrounding him. It was well knowledge that his ties to the Ku Klux Klan were related to more than just a common set of views. They were also about power and legacy. He never stopped thinking about the violent and menacing history of the Ku Klux Klan, which served as a constant reminder of the kind of person he had become. People who saw him wearing the colors of his club or heard his name were reminded not just of how violent he could be, but also of how dangerous he could be. This was accomplished with the backing of a complete organization that had a long history behind it. He employed this symbolism in order to exert control over the individuals who were closest to him and to exert influence over the greater biker community. He was able to gain an advantage due to the fact that he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Not only did people fear him because of what he did, but they also feared him because of the racial violence and terror that his tribe had been a part of for hundreds of years. Because of this, people were scared of him. Because of him, the insignia of the Ku Klux Klan was more than just a badge. It was a weapon that he used to intimidate others, get them to do what he wanted, and maintain his position at the top of the biker world as well as the Ku Klux Klan. However, he did not merely use the history of the Ku Klux Klan to combat his adversaries. In addition to that, he utilized it to supervise his following. Despite the fact that they did not fully agree with the principles of the Ku Klux Klan, members of his motorbike club had to deal with the weight of the emblem that they were following. He converted the legacy of hatred that the Ku Klux Klan had been known for into a tool for control and manipulation that is still employed today. It was because of the fear of what the Ku Klux Klan stood for that his followers were devoted to him, and the brutality that was a legacy of the Ku Klux Klan ensured that they obeyed. It wasn't just about his reputation that he was able to use the history of the Ku Klux Klan to gain power. It was also about making it impossible for anybody to challenge him. If you went against him, it was the same as going against a man, with all of the dread and control that comes along with that burdensome history. The result was that he was placed in a position of power that was extremely difficult to dispute. As his influence expanded, so did his power that grew. As a result of his connections to the Ku Klux Klan, he became a legendary character who was both terrifying and unshakable. Amplifying the Klan, using biker culture for power. The Ku Klux Klan biker didn't just scare people with violence, he also helped the Ku Klux Klan grow in power and reach. Many Klan members stayed on the fringes of society, but this biker used his position in the outlaw world to spread Klan ideas to places where they had never been able to before. He could work in both the biker and Klan worlds, which gave him a unique chance to spread the Klan's message beyond its usual boundaries. This helped him recruit and influence people who might not have been reached by the Klan's past activities. Bikers, who are often thought of as rebellious people who don't care about rules, were the perfect audience for his mix of hate and violence. A lot of the people in his motorcycle club were already living on the fringes of society, rejecting mainstream values. This made them more open to extremist ideas. He used manipulation to get these bikers to join the Klan, slowly building a network that went far beyond the usual Klan chapters. He was able to use his power as a biker and a Klan member to strengthen his position as a key figure in both communities because of this increase in influence. His actions weren't just meant to scare people, they were meant to leave a lasting legacy of hate. He was one of the Klan's most successful operatives in decades because he could get new members to join by using his power in the biker world. He wasn't just adding members to make the numbers look good. He was carefully building the Klan's power base so that his vision of a world without people of color could be carried out on a much larger scale. His influence didn't end with recruiting new members. He also helped pay for Klan activities through his illegal business dealings and ties to the biker world. His crimes gave the Klan money and other resources that helped them do their work, making them even stronger. He wasn't just a foot soldier. He was a key player in the Klan's ongoing revival, giving new life to an organization that was starting to lose its grip on power. Under his leadership, the biker world, which is usually thought of as a place of rebellion and defiance, became a tool for Klan propaganda and recruitment. He played with the biker community's themes of defiance and rebellion to hide the Klan's more evil plans. He made sure that his influence spread far and wide by putting himself at the top of both worlds. This made a network of people who saw him as the embodiment of both biker culture and the Klan's beliefs. He was able to connect the Klan's past with the biker world, and this had a lasting effect on both groups. The Klan had always been known for its violent past and racist beliefs, but he made sure that it spread to new areas. He was a key figure in the Klan's continued existence because he could recruit new members, raise money, and expand the group's power. This meant that his violent legacy would live on and spread. Crime as currency, fueling his power through illegal operations. The most feared member of the Ku Klux Klan was actually involved in a huge network of illegal operations that helped him acquire and maintain his authority. This was despite the fact that he had a reputation for being among the most aggressive bikers in the group. Unlike the rest of bikers, who often carry out their illegal activities on a smaller scale, this particular man was the mastermind behind a network that was significantly more extensive. Not only was he able to finance his own goals, but he was also able to finance the goals of the Ku Klux Klan through his illegal operations, which included smuggling and the selling of machinery and weapons. The fact that he participated in these operations was not merely a side business, rather, it was the way by which he elevated his standing in the world of motorcyclists, as well as in the group that was comprised of white supremacists. The most effective method for him to disguise his illegal activities was to adopt the lifestyle of an outlaw motorcyclist, as he discovered. Within a system that was already riddled with illegal activity, he was employed, and he made use of his relationships to conduct crimes that went much beyond the ordinary activities that are associated with motorcycles. The authority that he possessed was a direct result of his participation in the arms trade and smuggling businesses. He was able to finance activities of the Ku Klux Klan, spread its message, and retain his place at the top of both domains as a result of the increasing number of illegal agreements he conducted, which contributed to his increasing powerful position. He developed his criminal network not just for the purpose of making money, but also as a tool for him to achieve power and control that very few others could match. Additionally, he did this in order to make money. The fact that he did not conceal his criminal empire was one of the most significant characteristics of his commanding position. During the same time that he was gaining an advantage over other groups, he grew wealthy by carrying a significant quantity of illicit commodities and weapons. As a result, he was able to achieve a competitive advantage. Due to the fact that he was in charge of such a large criminal organization, it was extremely challenging for law enforcement and his opponents to take him on. The network was under his supervision at the time. He was able to break the law while simultaneously building a reputation for being someone who could not be touched. This was made possible by his connections to organized crime, which allowed him to continue his criminal activities. He was able to wield a larger degree of influence when it came to the acts of the Ku Klux Klan as a result of his connections to criminal activity. Because the money he made from his illegal activities was used to pay for the vile goals that the Ku Klux Klan were working toward, he was an essential member of the organization. In order to guarantee that members of the Ku Klux Klan would rely on him for both their financial and physical safety, he made sure that they participated in his operations. Their loyalty to him increased as a consequence of their increased involvement in his criminal enterprise, which led to an increase in their involvement. It was through his ability to link the accomplishments of the Ku Klux Klan with his own that he was able to guarantee that his authority inside the organization would never be called into question. As the most feared Klan rider, he employed a variety of strategies, in addition to terror and violence, in order to maintain his position of authority. He was able to maintain his domination because he was in possession of a big organization that supplied him with the funding he required. One of the factors that led to his status as a powerful character was the fact that he was able to manage illegal operations without losing his power. When it came to maintaining complete control over both the Ku Klux Klan and his motorcycle gang, he was not only a symbol of violence, but he was also very competent at exploiting criminal activity. This allowed him to do so. The unseen influence. Operating under the radar, the Ku Klux Klan used subtlety to scare others, unlike other bikers and Klan members who used violence. He used subtlety skillfully to do this. His influence spread to politics, law enforcement, and trade as the Ku Klux Klan developed. He affected all these areas. He was difficult to detect and deadly because he could keep a low profile while controlling his world. He became very dangerous with this skill. Because he could hide, he could keep doing what he was doing without authorities noticing. Many of his unlawful actions were carried out surreptitiously with middlemen who kept him safe. This low-key approach allowed him to make friends in the Klan and motorcycling community without drawing attention from more outspoken leaders. This contributed greatly to his success. In his anonymity, he could control others around him. He performed puppetry and conducted. This time, they feared him for something they couldn't see. He influenced politicians and law enforcement officers to act his way whether they knew it or not. He changed policy by using his criminal underworld contacts, even if other KKK members may have been more honest about rallies and violence. He did this through his criminal contacts. His ties to shady businesses were pervasive. Regardless of the laws or political situation, he could act freely without fear of punishment. Despite working with rival groups, he kept this information covert. Despite gang battles and power struggles in the brutal world of outlaw motorcyclists, he maintained his leadership without attracting attention to himself. Without drawing attention, he achieved this. If his assailants thought they had him cornered, he would hide and return with a stronger presence at the right time. This made him a formidable foe and a hard target to eliminate. He was a terrifying target. His strength came from more than just his criminal activities. He kept a well-built mystique around him and convinced his friends to stay with him. He was nearly impenetrable afterward. His allies were afraid of something they didn't know about him because he might be anywhere, at any time, and rule everything without being seen. He was powerful because he controlled everything. He was violent and skilled at hiding his power, so people might feel it without realizing how far it went. One of the most feared KKK members was more than a symbol of violence. His most powerful weapon was concealment. He was able to affect the biker culture and Klan's future without being fully exposed to the public. Impact beyond the Klan and biker world. The most feared Ku Klux Klan biker had an impact on biker culture and the Klan, as well as outside of both. His legacy of fear remained long after his power ended. His influence spanned civilization. His ability to handle both the motorcycling and Klan worlds allowed him to increase his authority beyond what most people expected. He reached an inconceivable level of dominance. He was important and feared by his opponents. He left a lasting mark on US terrorist organizations, organized crime, and biker culture. He was hazardous not only because of his brutality, but also because of his long-term impact on nearby people and organizations. These two factors made him lethal. His authority affected motorcyclists, Ku Klux Klan members he persuaded, and law enforcement officers who tried to govern him. His authority affected all of them. Whoever followed his example, learned from him, or feared him, seized his legacy. His name, which spelled doom for his opponents, haunts bikers and the KKK. His name evokes horror. His influence on the Ku Klux Klan was notable. His leadership revived the Ku Klux Klan, which had been a shell for a long time. He modernized the Ku Klux Klan, assuring its relevance for future generations. He preached hatred and unleashed a more dangerous tide of white supremacist terror. The previous wave was less coordinated, strategic, and organized. With his position, he was able to recruit new members, infiltrate society, and plant discontent discreetly and effectively. His impact on biker culture beyond the Klan is undisputed. His influence was significant. His harshness, along with a hatred and power desire, shaped motorcycle culture. He used both approaches to violence. The criminal motorcycle club leaders copied his tactics because they liked his ability to intimidate and govern individuals. Motorcycle riders, who had previously been free and rebellious, became increasingly dark and vicious. This change was within bikers. Many riders followed his strict rules and dedication to a cause different from motorcycle organizations' founding intentions. Motorcyclists after him were influenced by his legacy. His legacy lives on even after his reign ended. His life story is a cautionary tale of the consequences of power, brutality, and hatred. Police are still seeking for his criminal networks, and society is trying to prevent his views from flourishing again. Both projects are continuing. Those he left behind are still suffering, and his legacy will be one of dread. The most fearsome Ku Klux Klan rider left a lasting influence on the people and organizations that followed him, not just dread. Future generations will remember this legacy. He demonstrated how panic may change the course of events. He created a bloody legacy and a model for future violence. The influence on modern white supremacy. This is not true that the most feared Ku Klux Klan rider lost his power when he quit the Klan or motorcyclists to follow his own pursuits. Because his reign of terror shaped white supremacy, it will be with us forever. His acts and methods helped create a new era of hate groups, which influenced modern white supremacist organizations. The foundation was laid by his deeds and techniques. In the shadows, his concept still guides hate groups. Even if the KKK's influence has declined over time, he has influenced several white nationalist movements, making them more structured and militant. All of these movements have carried on his legacy. He seamlessly blended the Ku Klux Klan's philosophy with biker culture to create modern hate groups. Biker gangs were once considered criminal organizations that defied society. They became fertile ground for white supremacy throughout time. Many white nationalist groups operate today. These organizations follow Hitler's approach of intimidation, fear, and violence to achieve their goals. This transformation has revived white supremacy. New groups employ similar methods to recruit, organize, and execute their goals. Due to his leadership, the motorcycle community, which was once a place for young people seeking independence, became a vehicle for hatred. His achievement in integrating these two forces set a precedent that could harm future generations. They admire his ability to combine brutality with philosophy to leave a lasting legacy. He is an inspiration to numerous white nationalist groups, many of which are still tied to biker culture. These movements routinely deploy his persuasion, recruiting, and scare tactics. This has created an environment where violence is normal and beneficial for achieving their aggressive goals. This influence may still affect our globe. The most dreaded Klan biker may have started modern white nationalist groups in the US and Europe. This is especially true in America. His ability to operate in the shadows and utilize violence as a tool of control inspired many who would follow in his footsteps. Despite his declining fame, his name continues to echo in hate groups, inspiring those who want to continue his objective. His legacy has affected not only biker gangs and the Ku Klux Klan, but also the greater network of white supremacist groups that thrive in some sections of society. This is because his legacy has affected both groups. He maintained his authority even if the world changed by inspiring fear and allegiance through brutality, manipulation, and toxic ideology. He ensured his influence would last. The quiet power, operating under the radar in the public eye. One of the most unnerving qualities of the most dreaded Ku Klux Klan motorcycle was his ability to operate under the radar, disguising his full influence behind normalcy. One of his more frightening legacy parts. One aspect of his legacy, despite appearing to be another menacing biker, his power was more subtle than most people realized. He influenced power and systems without attracting attention to himself. The discipline was his forte. He built an empire of control that far exceeded the Ku Klux Klan and biker culture due to his silent authority. He was hated because he could move stealthily. Police and other hate organizations often exaggerated his influence, thinking he was just a leader in a violent subculture. This caused several incidents. Note that this computation was erroneous. He had carefully buried himself in several social sectors, thus his influence was deeply ingrained in the community. He had a big impact on the community. Through economic endeavors, contacts with local authorities, or illicit operations, he had a subtle but significant impact on areas others could not touch. He did this subtly and massively. He knew about and took advantage of these opportunities. One reason his actions were more risky was that he could hide his activities from people who would have threatened his dominance. He stayed in the background, pulling strings and controlling the narrative, unlike other KKK members who participated in hate rallies and violence. Ku Klux Klan member. He was able to work without interruption and arrange deals and manage events while being discreet. He was able to develop his power base without the same scrutiny as other Klan figures because he kept hidden. This allowed him to build his power base. His power on his followers showed his ability to hide this authority. His followers, whether bikers or KKK members, often underestimated his power. This applied to both situations. He kept them faithful while concealing his broader mechanisms. He used their trust to achieve his goal, keeping them faithful. Because he could function without being suspicious, he was able to maintain a sense of normalcy in his environment, making it difficult for others to confront him. Despite his success, his ability to operate covertly inspired others who would become hate group leaders. His quiet impact inspired those who wanted leadership without flamboyance. The lesson made it evident that authority does not require public visibility. However, the secret to control was to act invisibly and operate behind the scenes to change events and people to one's liking. The biker's downfall and the legacy left behind. When the most feared Ku Klux Klan biker lost power, it wasn't a big bang. Instead, his empire slowly fell apart. His reign of terror, which had once ruled the Klan and the outlaw biker world, started to fall apart because of how he ran things. His crimes were made public, and betrayal grew among his followers, slowly turning those who once supported him into enemies. Even though his empire was falling apart, his legacy didn't go away when he left the scene. His power stayed, spreading to both of the communities he used to run. Even though the police finally caught up to him, it was the problems within his own circle that really brought his reign to an end. Fear and violence, which used to be his strengths, became the very things that brought him down. Competitors and former friends saw a chance to take over, and soon his power was gone, leaving him open to attack. Even though he fell, his tactics, ruthless strategies, and toxic ideas lived on in those who took his place, keeping the fear he caused alive even after he was gone. His downfall was a weak point in an otherwise strong reign. The Klan and biker world didn't quickly fill the hole he left behind. Instead, it was filled with the same violence and chaos he had created. Leaders who followed in his footsteps used his methods, which created a cycle of power based on fear that lasted long after he was gone. The Klan and biker gangs that had once been afraid of him started to act like him, making sure that his reign would never be forgotten. The last part of his story may have been about things getting worse, but the effects of what he did will last forever. The Klan's power was kept alive by the very ideas he had strengthened, and the biker world would never be the same. Even though the man himself became less well known, his name was still known in hate groups, and his actions continued to shape the future of both the Klan and the outlaw biker world.